Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, I'm going to be reading a few chapters from Anthony De Mello's wonderful book, Awareness, the Perils and Opportunities of Reality. So please join me today. Sit back, relax, and hopefully you take something really inspirational and wonderful from the readings today. Chapter 15, Finding Yourself. The great masters tell us that the most important question in the world is, who am I? Or rather, what is I? What is this thing I call I? What is this thing I call self? You mean you understood everything else in the world and you didn't understand this? You mean you understood astronomy and black holes and quasars and you picked up computer science and you don't know who you are? My, you are still asleep. You are a sleeping scientist. You mean you understood what Jesus Christ is and you don't know who you are? How do you know that you have understood Jesus Christ? Who was the person doing the understanding? Find that out first. That's the foundation of everything, isn't it? It's because we haven't understood this that we've all got these stupid religious people involved in all these stupid religious wars. Muslims fighting against Jews, Protestants fighting against Catholics, and all of the rest of that rubbish. They don't know who they are, because if they did, there wouldn't be wars. Like the little girl who says to a little boy, "Are you a Presbyterian?" And he says, "No, we belong to another abomination." But what I'd like to stress right now is self-observation. You are listening to me. But are you picking up any other sounds beside the sound of my voice as you listen to me? Are you aware of your reactions as you listen to me? If you aren't, you're going to be brainwashed, or else you are going to be influenced by forces within you of which you have no awareness at all. And even if you're aware of how you react to me, are you simultaneously aware of where your reaction is coming from? Maybe you are not listening to me at all. Maybe your daddy is listening to me. Do you think that's possible? Of course it is. Again and again in my therapy groups, I come across people who aren't there at all. Their daddy is there, their mommy is there, but they're not there. They never were there. I live now. Not I, but my daddy lives in me. Well, that's absolutely literally true. I could take you apart piece by piece and ask, now this sentence, does it come from daddy, mommy, grandma, grandpa? Whom? Who's living in you? It's pretty horrifying when you come to know that. You would think you are free, but there probably isn't a gesture, a thought, an emotion, an attitude, a belief in you that isn't coming from someone else. Isn't it horrible? And you don't know it. Talk about a mechanical life that was stamped into you. You feel pretty strongly about certain things and you think it is who you are feeling strongly about them. But are you really? It's going to take a lot of awareness for you to understand that perhaps this thing you call I is simply a conglomeration of your past experiences, of your conditioning and programming. That's painful. In fact, when you're beginning to awaken, you experience a great deal of pain. It's painful to see your illusions being shattered. Everything that you thought you had built up crumbles, and that's painful. That's what repentance is all about. That's what waking up is all about. So how about taking a minute, right where you're sitting now, to be aware, even as I talk, of what you're feeling in your body, and what's going on in your mind, and what your emotional state is like. How about being aware of the blackboard if your eyes are open and the color of these walls and the material they're made of? How about being aware of my face and the reaction you have to the face of mine? Because you have a reaction whether you're aware of it or not. And it probably isn't your reaction, but one you are conditioned to have. How about being aware of some of the things I just said, although that wouldn't be awareness because that's just memory now. Be aware of your presence in this room. Say to yourself, I'm in this room. It's as if you were outside yourself looking at yourself. Notice a slightly different feeling than if you were looking at things in the room. Later we'll ask, who is this person who is doing the looking? I am looking at me. What's an I? What's me? For the time being, it's enough that I watch me. But if you find yourself condemning yourself or approving yourself, don't stop the condemnation and don't stop the judgment or approval. Just watch it. I'm condemning me. I'm disapproving of me. I'm approving of me. Just look at it, period. Don't try to change it. Don't say, oh, we were told not to do this. Just observe what's going on. As I said to you before, self-observation means watching, observing whatever is going on in you and around you as if it were happening to someone else. That's the end of chapter 15. Chapter 16 is titled Stripping Down to the I. I suggest another exercise now. Would you write down on a piece of paper any brief way you would describe yourself? For example, businessman, priest, human being, Catholic, Jew, anything. Some write, I notice, things like fruitful, searching, pilgrim, competent, alive, impatient, centered, flexible, reconciler, lover, member of the human race, overly structured. This is the fruit, I trust, of observing yourself, as if you were watching another person. But notice you've got I observing me. This is an interesting phenomena that has never ceased to cause wonder to philosophers, mystics, scientists, psychologists, that the I can observe me. It would seem that animals are not able to do this at all. It would seem that one needs a certain amount of intelligence to be able to do this. What I'm going to give you now is not metaphysics. It is not philosophy. It is a plain observation and common sense. The great mystics of the East are really referring to that I, not to the me, as a matter of fact. Some of these mystics tell us that we begin first with things, with an awareness of things. Then we move on to an awareness of thoughts. That's the me. And finally, we get to awareness of the thinker. Things, thoughts, thinker. What we're really searching for is the thinker. Can the thinker know himself? Can I know what I is? Some of the mystics reply, can the knife cut itself? Can the tooth bite itself? Can the eye see itself? Can the eye know itself? But I am concerned with something infinitely more practical right now, and that is with deciding what the I is not. I'll go as slowly as possible because the consequences are devastating, terrific or terrifying, depending on your point of view. Listen to this. Am I my thoughts? The thoughts that I am thinking? No. Thoughts come and go. I am not my thoughts. Am I my body? They tell us that millions of cells in our body are changed or renewed every minute, so that by the end of 7 years, we don't have a single living cell in our body that was there 7 years before. Cells come and go, cells arise and die, but I seems to persist. So am I my body? Evidently not. I is something other and more than the body. You might say the body part of I is but a changing part. It keeps moving. It keeps changing. We have the same name for it, but it constantly changes. Just as we have the same name for Niagara Falls, but Niagara Falls is constituted of water that is constantly changing. We use the same name for an ever-changing reality. How about my name? Is I my name? Evidently not, because I can change my name without changing the I. How about my career? How about my beliefs? I say I am a Catholic, a Jew. Is that an essential part of I? When I move from one religion to another, has the I changed? Do I have a new I, or is it the same I that has changed? In other words, is my name an essential part of me, of the I? Is my religion an essential part of the I? I mentioned the little girl who says to the boy, are you Presbyterian? Well, somebody told me another story about Patty. Patty was walking down the street in Belfast, and he discovers a gun pressing against the back of his head, and a voice says, are you a Catholic or a Protestant? Well, Patty has to do some pretty fast thinking. He says, I'm a Jew. And he hears a voice say, I've got the luckiest Arab in the whole of Belfast. Labels are so important to us. I am a Republican. But are you really? You can't mean that when you switch parties you have a new I. Isn't it the same old I with new political convictions? I remember hearing about a man who asked his friends, are you planning to vote Republican? The friend says, no, I'm planning to vote Democrat. My father was Democrat, my grandfather was Democrat, and my great-grandfather was Democrat. The man says, that is crazy logic. I mean, if your father was a horse thief, and your grandfather was a horse thief, and your great-grandfather was a horse thief, what would you be? Ah, the friend answered, then I'd be a Republican. We spend so much of our lives reacting to labels, our own and others. We identify the labels with the I. Catholic and Protestant are frequent labels. There's a man who went to the priest and said, Father, I want to say a mass for my dog. The priest was indignant. What do you mean, say a mass for your dog? It's my pet dog, said the man. I love that dog and I'd like to offer a mass for him. The priest said, we don't offer masses for dogs here. You might try the denomination down the street. Ask them if they might have a service for you. As the man was leaving, he said to the priest, too bad, I really love that dog. I was planning to offer $1 million stipend for the mass. The priest said, wait a minute, you never told me your dog was a Catholic. When you're caught up in labels, what value do these labels have as far as the I is concerned? Could we say that I is none of the labels we attach to it? Labels belong to me. What constantly changes is me. Does I ever change? Does the observer ever change? The fact is that no matter what labels you think of, except perhaps human being, you should apply them to me. I is none of these things. So when you step out of yourself and observe me, you no longer identify with me. Suffering exists in me. So when you identify I with me, suffering begins. Say that you are afraid or desirous or anxious. When I does not identify with money or name or nationality or persons or friends or any quality, the I is never threatened. It can be very active, but it is not threatened. Think of anything that caused or is causing you pain or worry or anxiety. First, can you pick up the desire under that suffering? That there's something you desire very keenly, or else you wouldn't be suffering. What is that desire? Second, it isn't simply a desire. There's an identification there. You have somehow said to yourself, the well-being of I, almost the existence of I, is tied up with this desire. All suffering is caused by my identifying with something, whether that something is within me or outside of me. That's the end of chapter 16. Chapter 17 will be the final one I read today, and is titled Negative Feelings Toward Others. At one of my conferences, someone made the following observation. I want to share something with you wonderful that happened to me. I went to the movies, and I was working shortly after that, and I was really having trouble with 3 people in my life. So I said, all right, just like I learned at the movies, I'm going to come outside of myself. For a couple of hours, I got in touch with my feelings and how badly I felt toward these 3 people. I said, I really hate those people. Then I said, Jesus, what can I do about all that? A little while later, I began to cry because I realized that Jesus died for those very people and they couldn't help how they were anyway. That afternoon, I had to go to the office where I spoke to those people. I told them what my problem was, and they agreed with me. I wasn't mad at them and I didn't hate them anymore. Anytime you have a negative feeling toward anyone, you're living in an illusion. There's something seriously wrong with you. You're not seeing reality. Something inside of you has to change. But what we generally do when we have a negative feeling? He is to blame. She is to blame. She's got to change. No, the world's all right. The one who has to change is you. One of you told of a working in an institution. During a staff meeting, someone would inevitably say the food stinks around here, and the regular dietitian will go into orbit. She's identified with the food. She's saying, anyone who attacks the food attacks me. I feel threatened. But the I is never threatened. It's only the me that is threatened. But suppose you witness some out-and-out injustice, something that is obviously and objectively wrong. Would it not be proper reaction to say that this should not happen? Should you somehow want to involve yourself in correcting this situation that's wrong? Someone's injuring a child and you see abuse going on. How about that kind of thing? I hope you did not assume that I was saying you shouldn't do anything. I said that if you didn't have any negative feelings, you'd be much more effective. Much, much more effective. Because when negative feelings come in, you go blind. Me steps into the picture and everything gets fouled up. Where we had one problem on our hands before, now we have 2 problems. Many wrongly assume that not having a negative feeling, like anger and resentment and hate, means that you do nothing about a situation. Oh no. Oh no. You are not affected emotionally, but you spring into action. You become very sensitive to the things and people around you. What kills the sensitivity is what many people would call the conditioned self. When you so identify with me that there's too much of me in it for you to see things objectively with detachment, it's very important that when you swing into action, you'll be able to see things with detachment. But negative emotions prevent that. What then would you call the kind of passion that motivates or activates energy into doing something about objective evils? Whatever it is not a reaction. It is an action. Some of you wonder if there is a gray area before some things becomes an attachment, before identification sets in. Say a friend dies. It seems right and very human to feel some sadness about that. But what reaction? Self-pity? What would you be grieving about? Think about that. What I'm saying is going to sound terrible to you, but I told you I'm coming from another world. Your reaction is personal loss, right? Feeling sorry for me or for other people your friend might have brought joy to. But that means you're feeling sorry for other people who are feeling sorry for themselves. If they're not feeling sorry for themselves, what would they be feeling sorry for? We never feel grief when we lose something that we have allowed to be free, that we have never attempted to possess. Grief is a sign that I made my happiness depend on this thing or person, at least to some extent. We're so accustomed to hear the opposite of this that when I say this, it sounds inhuman, doesn't it? And that's the end of chapter 17. I look forward to reading more with you guys, and I hope that you have a wonderful and beautiful day. If you got anything out of these readings, please share them with friends, like it, leave me a comment. I'd really appreciate it. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Take care now.